Here's a scenario I want you to sit with for a second. You're standing in your kitchen. There's a tub of white powder on the counter. You've seen the TikToks. You've read the Reddit threads. You've heard guys at the gym swear by it like it's some kind of secret they discovered. Creatine is basically a natural testosterone booster, they said. Take it every day and something shifts. Something in you wakes back up. And honestly, you needed to hear that. Because somewhere along the way, somewhere between the long work weeks, the bad sleep, the stress that never quite goes away, you stopped feeling like your best self. Not dramatically, just quietly. Like someone turned the dial down a few notches when you weren't paying attention. So you try it. You mix that first scoop into your water, and you wait. Week 1, the scale jumps a pound or 2. Your muscles look a little fuller after your workout. You get a slightly better pump. And then you wait for the testosterone surge, the energy, the feeling of being switched on again. It doesn't come, not the way anyone promised. And now it's 3 weeks later. You're standing in front of the same mirror, and you're asking yourself, did I just waste $40? Did those guys online lie to me? Or is something actually broken in my biology? Here's what nobody told you. You were asking the completely wrong question from the start. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand something that the vast majority of people who take creatine never figure out. Why your lab number might barely move, and yet your entire hormonal environment can completely transform. Stay with me, because this is not what the supplement companies want you to believe, and it's not the fear-mongering from the other side either. This is the actual science, explained the way it should have been explained to you from day one. The confusion starts because there are 2 camps on the internet screaming at each other. Camp 1 says creatine is basically a legal steroid, that it'll jack up your testosterone and turn you into a machine. Camp 2 says it'll wreck your hormones, tank your hairline, and damage your kidneys. Neither camp is giving you the full picture. Neither camp read the actual studies. And in the middle of all that noise, something genuinely fascinating is happening in your body when you take creatine daily. Something far more interesting and far more useful than either side is willing to admit. So let's slow down. Let's go inside your body, day by day, week by week, and follow exactly what creatine does to your testosterone, your DHT, your androgen system, and your brain. Because the story lives in the details, and the details are where the real opportunity is. Before we get into the first week, we need to establish something foundational. Because if you're operating on the wrong assumption, everything else collapses. Creatine is not a hormone. It is not a steroid. It does not look like testosterone. It does not act like testosterone. And it is not remotely in the same chemical family. It is a small nitrogen-containing compound that your body already makes every single day from 3 amino acids: arginine, glycine, and methionine. Your liver produces roughly 1 to 2 grams of it daily on its own. You get more from food, specifically red meat and fish. The supplement version simply floods your system with more of what your body already manufactures and already uses. So if it has nothing to do with hormones, why does this conversation about testosterone keep coming up? Why do so many men report actual changes in mood, in drive, in how they feel in the gym and in their daily life? The answer is not what most people expect, and it requires us to zoom in at the cellular level, starting on day 1. Days 1 through 7. You take that first scoop, and within a few hours, your muscles begin absorbing it. Creatine binds with phosphate groups inside your muscle fibers and converts into phosphocreatine. That phosphocreatine sits in your muscles like a reserve fuel tank. Now here's the part that most people never actually learn, and it matters. When you do anything explosive, a heavy squat, a sprint, a set of pull-ups, your body burns through its primary energy currency, adenosine triphosphate, what we call ATP, in seconds. Literally, seconds. Your muscles exhaust that pool almost immediately during maximal effort. The job of phosphocreatine is to donate a phosphate group and regenerate ATP on the spot, buying you another few seconds of output before your body has to switch to slower energy systems. This is not a theory. This is one of the most well-documented and replicated mechanisms in all of exercise physiology. When you supplement creatine, you are expanding that reserve. Think of it as upgrading from a standard battery to a high-capacity one. You won't feel the difference sitting on your couch. You'll feel it exactly when it matters, when you're grinding through that last rep, when you're trying to push past the point where you used to stop. Now, in that first week, something else happens that throws a lot of people off. Water follows creatine into your muscle cells. Phosphocreatine is osmotically active, which means it pulls water intracellularly as it accumulates. This is why your scale moves. This is why you look slightly fuller in the mirror after sessions. It is real intracellular hydration. Your muscles are being primed for greater output. It is not fat. It is not subcutaneous bloat. And it is the first reason people start asking the question, is this doing something to my hormones? Here's what the research actually shows about testosterone in that first week. Almost nothing changes for most people. When scientists pool data from multiple controlled trials looking at creatine and testosterone, the pattern is consistent and important. In healthy adults, creatine supplementation alone does not significantly alter circulating testosterone in the majority of studies. 10 out of 13 peer-reviewed trials examining this question found no meaningful difference in total testosterone. 2 found minor, physiologically insignificant increases, and 1 found what appeared to be a dramatic DHT effect. And that is the study that has been screenshot and shared and distorted into something it never was. We are going to break that study down in full detail shortly. But first, I need you to understand why the absence of a testosterone spike is not actually the problem people think it is. Your endocrine system is not a simple faucet you can turn up by adding more substrate. The hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis, the command chain that governs testosterone production, runs on negative feedback loops. Your brain monitors how much testosterone is circulating. It calibrates production accordingly. Creatine does not talk to your hypothalamus. It does not tell your pituitary to release more LH. It does not signal your testes to produce more testosterone. It operates on an entirely separate pathway, the cellular energy pathway, and this is by design. It is actually the right answer, even if it doesn't feel like it yet. Here's the question I want you to sit with. Are you more interested in the number on your lab report, or in how your body actually performs and feels? Because those two things can move in completely different directions. And that gap between the number and the experience is exactly where the real story lives. Weeks 2 through 8. Something quiet starts happening. It doesn't announce itself with fanfare. You show up at the gym and the weights feel different. Not magically lighter, actually lighter. You hit reps you used to fail at. You add 5, maybe 10 pounds to the bar and it doesn't feel like a stretch. You finish a leg session and instead of being completely wrecked for 2 days, you bounce back in 1. Your body recovers like it has a slight advantage it didn't have before. And that sense of being more capable, it starts to bleed into your day. Not the jittery kind of energy you get from pre-workout. not the crash and burn of too much caffeine. Something steadier. Something that feels like it's actually coming from inside you. Here's the mechanism behind that. The research community has shifted the conversation from looking at testosterone in isolation to examining what scientists call the anabolic environment, the full ecosystem of hormones, receptors, and cellular signals that collectively determines whether your body is in a state of building or a state of breaking down. And this concept changes everything about how you should think about creatine. Let's use an analogy. Think of testosterone as a radio signal. The signal strength is your total testosterone level. But signal strength alone does not determine what you hear. What determines your actual listening experience is the quality of your receiver, specifically the androgen receptors embedded in your muscle tissue and throughout your body. These are the molecular docking stations that testosterone must bind to in order to exert its effects, triggering protein synthesis, promoting muscle growth, influencing mood and motivation, and shaping your body composition over time. More receptors, higher sensitivity. You get a richer response to the same testosterone signal. The music plays louder without the station changing its broadcast power. And here's where it gets genuinely interesting. Resistance training, particularly heavy, progressive, compound movements, is one of the most reliable ways to upregulate androgen receptor expression in your muscle tissue. This is well established across decades of exercise physiology research. When you train hard and consistently, your muscles respond by increasing both the number and the sensitivity of androgen receptors. Your blood testosterone level might not change at all, but your muscles become better listeners. They extract more signal from the same broadcast. Creatine, by enabling you to train harder and recover faster, is the tool that allows this receptor adaptation to occur more efficiently. You are not raising the volume of the broadcast. You are building a better receiver. You are creating a body that gets more out of the testosterone it already has. This is the mechanism that no supplement ad will ever explain to you, because it requires nuance, and nuance doesn't sell tubs of powder. Here's the data behind this. In study after study, including landmark research from exercise physiologists like Dr. Jeff Volek at Ohio State and Dr. Richard Kreider at Texas A&M, two of the most published researchers in this field, groups taking creatine alongside resistance training gained significantly more muscle mass and strength than groups doing identical training with a placebo. More volume, better recovery, greater long-term adaptation. But when researchers measured testosterone levels, the numbers were statistically similar across groups. Same testosterone, different body, different performance, different physique. That is the anabolic environment working exactly as it should. Now let's address the study that launched the panic, the one that has been shared hundreds of thousands of times on fitness forums, bodybuilding subreddits, and hair loss anxiety groups, usually without the context that completely changes its meaning. In 2009, a team of researchers in South Africa recruited 20 male rugby players and put them on a 3-week creatine supplementation protocol. 7 days of loading at 25 grams per day, followed by 14 days of maintenance at 5 grams per day. They measured serum testosterone and dihydrotestosterone, DHT, at baseline, after loading, and at the end of maintenance. Total testosterone did not change, but DHT increased by 56% after the loading phase. The ratio of DHT to testosterone increased by 36% after loading and remained 22% elevated at the end of the maintenance phase. That is the entire study. 20 players, 16 completers, 3 weeks, 1 lab in South Africa. And it has been treated by the internet as definitive proof that creatine is a hormonal wrecking ball. Here is what the viral versions never tell you. Now let's get fully practical. Because information that doesn't translate into a clear, executable plan is just entertainment. Here is how you actually think about creatine within the context of a real hormonal health strategy. The honest hierarchy of interventions for healthy testosterone, ranked by magnitude of evidence-based impact, starts with sleep. Not supplements, not training, sleep. Your body produces the majority of its testosterone during deep, slow-wave sleep. A landmark study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association found that restricting healthy young men to 5 hours of sleep per night for 1 week reduced their daytime testosterone levels by 10 to 15%. That is not a marginal effect. That is a clinically meaningful reduction that accumulates with every night of poor sleep. If you are averaging 5 or 6 hours and wondering why you feel flat and low energy regardless of what you're supplementing, you have found your answer. No amount of creatine, zinc, ashwagandha, or any other compound compensates for chronically insufficient sleep. Fix the sleep first. Everything else builds on that foundation. Progressive resistance training is second. 3 to 5 sessions per week, built around compound movements, squats, deadlifts, bench press, rows, overhead press, with genuine progressive overload over time. This means regularly, if gradually, increasing the demand you place on your musculature. This is the most reliable, non-pharmacological stimulus for maintaining testosterone production, androgen receptor density, and lean body mass as you age. The research on this spans decades across multiple countries and populations. Men who train with weights consistently throughout their adult lives maintain meaningfully higher testosterone levels, better insulin sensitivity, more muscle mass, and substantially lower all-cause mortality risk than their sedentary counterparts of the same age. The gym is not just aesthetics, it is endocrine medicine. Body composition management is third, and it is one that the American male population specifically needs to take seriously. Adipose tissue, body fat, particularly the visceral kind that accumulates around the midsection, expresses an enzyme called aromatase. Aromatase converts testosterone into estradiol. The more excess visceral fat you carry, the more of your testosterone gets converted into estrogen, and the more your hypothalamus interprets that estrogen signal as evidence that sex hormone levels are adequate, causing it to reduce the signal to produce more testosterone. This creates a self-reinforcing cycle. More body fat leads to more aromatization, which leads to less testosterone signaling, which leads to more difficulty maintaining muscle and losing fat. Reducing body fat, particularly abdominal, visceral fat, reliably increases free testosterone in overweight men. The mechanism is direct, well-documented, and one of the few genuinely actionable levers that most American men have significant room to use. Stress management is fourth on this hierarchy, and it is consistently the most underestimated variable by men who appear to be doing everything else right. If you are sleeping 8 hours, training 5 days a week, eating well, maintaining a reasonable body weight, and still feeling hormonally flat, the most likely culprit is chronic psychological stress that you have normalized to the point of invisibility. It simply feels like your baseline. It feels like just how life is, but your cortisol system is registering it, regardless of whether your conscious mind has accepted it. Elevated cortisol in this context is silently suppressing your HPG axis month after month, year after year. Addressing this is not soft advice. It is endocrine medicine. It may require restructuring your work schedule, reducing your evening screen exposure, building deliberate recovery into your week, improving the quality of your relationships, or seeking professional support. It will not be solved by any supplement. Lab work is fifth, not because it's least important, but because it's most useful after the foundational variables are being addressed, rather than as a substitute for them. A complete hormonal panel for a man who wants an honest picture of his endocrine health should include total testosterone, free testosterone, SHBG, estradiol, LH, FSH, prolactin, full thyroid panel, including TSH and free T4, complete blood count, comprehensive metabolic panel, including fasting glucose and insulin, vitamin D, zinc, and ferritin. These data points, interpreted by a clinician who understands the full context of your lifestyle, training history, sleep, and stress, not just your age, give you an actual map of where your hormonal system stands and what levers are available to you. If your total testosterone is below 300 nanograms per deciliter with symptomatic presentation, that is a clinical finding that warrants serious evaluation and potentially treatment. If your free testosterone is low due to elevated SHBG, that tells you something specific and actionable. The numbers matter, but they need context and interpretation. And then, built on top of all of that, creatine monohydrate. 3 to 5 grams per day, every day. No loading phase required if you prefer a slower approach. Taken at whatever time is most consistent for you, with or without food, with adequate water intake. The form matters less than the consistency. Creatine monohydrate is the most studied form, the most cost-effective form, and performs equivalently or better than every more expensive proprietary variant in head-to-head comparisons. You do not need the fancy version. You need the consistent version. What does this look like projected forward? Imagine yourself 10 years from today. You have been training consistently, sleeping well most nights, managing your weight, and taking 5 grams of creatine on most mornings. You are stronger at 45 than most men are at 30. Your shoulders, your legs, your grip, they carry a decade of accumulated stimulus and adaptation. Your brain still works the way you need it to work under pressure. Your energy in the morning is not something you have to manufacture with 3 cups of coffee. Your testosterone number on your annual lab panel may sit right where it always has. But your body, your mind, and your daily experience reflect a hormonal environment that has been consistently supported rather than chronically eroded. That is the return on this investment. Not a 30-day transformation photo. A life that keeps working the way you want it to. Creatine is not a shortcut. It is not a hormone hack. It is not what the supplement industry has marketed it as, and it is not the hidden danger that the fear merchants have built entire platforms around. It is something considerably more useful than either of those narratives. A safe, extensively researched, practically accessible tool that makes the real drivers of hormonal health, training, recovery, and cognitive resilience more sustainable and more effective over time.